Hi guys, this lesson is for page 255 in your math textbook for lesson 6.7 where we are comparing fractions. The first part is our share and show that we would normally do together in class anyway. And so the first one we're going to look at tells us to compare 2/5 and 1/10. If we don't have like numerators or like denominators, we have to try to figure out some way that would make it a little bit easier for us to compare these fractions. And so what we're going to do is, since I noticed that 5 is a factor of 10, and 10 is a multiple of 5, I can use 10 as my common denominator. And in order for my denominator to be 10, I'm going to have to multiply my 2/5. I'm going to have to multiply this denominator by 2 in order to get a denominator of 10. And if I multiply my denominator by 2, I also have to multiply my numerator by 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. And so now I have equivalent fractions. 2/5 is exactly the same as 4/10. Okay, those are equivalent. And now I have 4/10 and 1/10 that I'm comparing. And so I can already see that 4/10 is greater than 1/10. And so 2/5 would be greater than 1/10. And I'm thinking 4/10 size parts is greater than 1/10 size part. Obviously, because if we just look at our numerators here, we have 4 and 1. And so I know that 4 is greater than 1. So 2/5 is greater than 1/10. In number 2, we are comparing 6/10 and 3/4. And so I know that 6 is a multiple of 3. And so I'm going to go with using a common numerator here. And that would be 6, okay? We always have to go with the larger one. So it's easier to use that. So if I'm going to change my numerators to 6, I have 1/16 has already got 6 as a numerator, but I need 3/4 to have 6 as a numerator. I'm going to take my 3/4, I'm going to put my 6 here, and then I'm going to think, I need this 3, this numerator of 3 to be 6. And so 3 times 2 is going to give me 6. So I have to do the same thing to my denominator that I did to my numerator. I'm going to multiply it by 2. So 4 times 2 is 8. And now what I'm doing is comparing 6/10 and 6/8. And I know that a 10th size part is less than an 8th size part. So think about this. If I have a pizza and I divide it into 10 slices, those slices are going to be smaller than if I just divide it into 8 slices. So 6/10 is less than 3/4. Okay? For 3 through 6, it gives us one more thing that we are allowed to use in our comparison. We have to write less than, greater than, or equal to. And so now we have one extra thing that we need to look for. And if something is equal, then it can't be greater than or less than another. So 7/8 and 2/8. Well, the first thing I notice here is I have like denominators. And so I can just look at my numerators and tell which one is larger. Well, 7 is greater than 2. So 7/8 is greater than 2/8. For number 4, 5/12 and 3/6. 3 and 5 don't have a lot. They don't have a lot in common. But 6 and 12, I know that 12 is a multiple of 6. So I can change my denominator on 3/6 into 12. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to multiply 6 times 2 in order to get a denominator of 12. And since I multiplied my denominator by 2, I have to multiply my numerator by 2 as well. So 3 times 2 is 6. So 6 twelfths is the same as 3 sixths. So I'm really comparing 5 twelfths and 6 twelfths. So which one of those is larger? Obviously 6 twelfths, because 6 is more than 5. So 5 twelfths is less than 3 sixths. Number 5, 4 tenths and 4 sixths. Well, in this one I can compare my numerators. I can't compare my numerators. My numerators are the same. So I'm going to look to my denominators. I know that tenths, if I divide something into tenths, those pieces are going to be smaller than if I divide them into sixths, okay? So I know that 4 tenths is less than 4 sixths. I'm sorry, I drew that wrong. Backwards. 4 tenths is less than 4 sixths. Isn't it nice to know your teacher messes up sometimes too? All right, so in the next one, I'm comparing 6 twelfths and 2 fourths. So 6 twelfths, I know that 6 is half a 12, so this is the same as 1/2. And 2 is half a 4, so I know that this is the same as 1/2. So this one is neither less than nor greater than, it is equal to. They are exactly the same thing. Okay, moving on to on your own. I'm going to go ahead and go through these two, so hopefully if you want to pause your video and go through these and see if you can do them on your own and then come back and press play and check your answers, that would be great. So I'm going to continue on, so if you need to pause, go ahead and do that now. All right, so on your own, compare. We're writing less than, greater than, or equal to. 1/3 or 1/4. Well, my numerators are the same, and I know that thirds, something divided into 3 pieces, those pieces are going to be larger than if I divide them into fourths. So 1/3 is greater than 1/4. 4 fifths and 8 tenths. I don't have a common numerator or a common denominator, and in this one, a lot of times it's easier to compare if either of these would be easy. We could do a common numerator of 8, or we could do a common denominator of 10. And many times comparing something with like denominators is much easier. So I'm going to go with discovering a like denominator. Okay, so I know that if I take 4 fifths and I multiply it to try to get something, to get my denominator to 10, I'm going to have to multiply 5, my denominator 5, times 2 to get 10. So I'm also going to have to do that to my numerator. So 4 times 2 is 8. So look at that. 4 fifths is the same as 8 tenths. So this one is equal to. They are exactly the same size. And number 9, we're comparing 3 fourths to 2 sixths. So what I know about this one is that 3 fourths is, I can use a benchmark on this one. That's probably the strategy that I would use here. I would use that because I know that 3 fourths is almost 1, okay? So if I have a fraction bar here and it's divided into 4 pieces and I've got 3 of those shaded, I only need 1 more fourth to make a whole. But I know that if it's 2 sixths, I know that 3 sixths equals 1/2, okay? And 2 sixths is even smaller than 3 sixths. So the 3 fourths is definitely greater than 2 sixths. In number 10, we have 1/2 and 5/8. Okay, this one should be fairly simple because what would be equal to 1/2? It would be 4/8 would equal 1/2. And this is 5/8, so 1/2 is less than 5/8. This one right here is larger than 1/2 because 4/8 is exactly the same as 1/2. Number 11, 3 tenths and 2 fourths. Well, 3 2/4 is the same as 1/2. We know that. And 3/10 is, if you divide something into tenths, it's going to be very small. And it would take 5/10 in order to make a half. And so in this one, 3/10 is significantly less than 2/4. Okay, this one gets a little bit big. Here we go, 75/100 compared to 8/10. Now, what we're going to do here is look for a common denominator, and we know that 100 is a multiple of 10. So if I take my 8/10 and I multiply it by something to get 100 as my denominator, I know that if I multiply 10 times 10, I'm going to get 100. So I also have to multiply my numerator by 10. 8 times 10 is 80. And so I know now I've got 80 100ths, it's the same as 8/10, and 75 100ths. So 75 100ths is less than 8/10 or 80 100ths, because 80 is greater than 75. Number 13, 4/6 and 2/3. Now, one of the first things I notice here is I can do the same thing with these denominators here. 6 is a multiple of 3, so I can take 2/3 and multiply it by a fraction, by a whole, and get a 6 as a denominator. So 3 times what will give me a 6 in my denominator? And the answer to that is 2. So I also have to multiply my numerator by the same number, 2. 2 times 2 is 4. So I have 4/6 and 4/6. So 4/6 is exactly the same as 2/3. Over here, I have 3/10 and 4 100ths. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing I did over here on number 12. And I'm going to multiply, I'm going to change my 3/10 into 100ths, okay? And if I multiply 10 times 10, I get 100. I have to multiply my numerator by 10 also, so 3 times 10 is 30. And so this is actually 30 100ths and 4 100ths. So 30 is, in my numerator, is much larger than my 4. So 3/10 is greater than 4 100ths. Okay, our final section is, these are the higher order thinking problems that some of you stress about so badly. But this is actually called algebra because what you're doing is filling in a number, an unknown number, okay? And so in this one, we're looking at 1/2 compared to what? What third would 1/2 be greater than? 1/2 is greater than what? And obviously, if we did 1/3, that's the easiest one. It's definitely smaller than 1/3. I mean, greater than 1/3. Because if you divide a pizza into 2 pieces, you have two large pieces. And then if you divide it into thirds, then your pieces are going to be smaller. So, number 16, 3/10 is less than how many fifths? So what I'm going to do here is change this, whatever, I've got a blank up here and I've got a fifth. I'm going to multiply that times a fraction and I'm going to get a 10 in my denominator. 5 times 2 is 10. So whatever I could multiply by 2 to get a number that's larger than 3. Okay, because I need my 3/10 is going to be smaller. It's less than this number. So this number here, it can't be 1, and it could be 2, and it could be 3, or it could be 4. So if I do 2 times 2 is 4, so that's 4/10. So this right here could be 2/5. It could also be 3, or you could also do 4, because 3/10 is less than, so anything that's larger than 3/10 is going to work for that one. All right, Number 17 is 5/12, and it's less than this third here. So I'm going to use my same trick to come up with a common denominator. If I have a denominator of 3 and I multiply it by a fraction to get 12 as my common denominator, what can I multiply by 3 to get 12? Okay, this is going to be 4 because 3 times 4 is 12. And up here is going to be a 4. I'm going to multiply that, but this right here is still my unknown number, right? So it has, since 5/12 is less than whatever this third is here, this number has to be greater than 5, okay? So it can't, this number can't be 1 because that would only give us 4/12, and that would be less than. It could be 2 because 2 times 4 is 8. So it could be 2/3. Well, and if you do 3/3, that's a whole. So 2/3 is the correct answer for that one. All right, let's look at 18. 2/3 is greater than 4 somethings. So I'm going to use my like denominators here. My like numerators. Or come up with a common numerator. I'm sorry. So if I look at 2/3 times a fraction that would give me a 4 as a numerator, I'm looking at 2 times what equals 4? That'd be a 2. 3 times, and same thing on the bottom on the denominator. 3 times 2 is 6. So 2/3 and 4/6 are going to be exactly the same. So I know that the smaller that my denominator gets, the larger, the smaller my fraction is. And so this number can't be 6 because then that would make that equal to. But it could be what? Two-thirds is greater than 4/5. I'm sorry, 4/8. Oh. So you would need a larger number here in order for this one to be greater than. Because the larger your denominator gets, the smaller your fraction is. Okay? All right, I hope that was helpful, and I will see you guys on page 256.